Welcome to Legal Video Resource. I'm Jason Wietholter. Today, we're looking at audio mixers for deposition video. One of the most important aspects of legal video is audio. In fact, in some ways, it's almost more important. People are much more forgiving of poor quality video, or maybe some things that are in the frame are not quite perfect with video. They're more forgiving of that than they are audio problems. And really what it is that we're capturing as legal videographers, and in particular deposition videographers, is the testimony and evidence being presented, but most of that comes in the form of the spoken word, of dialogue, of a question and answer session. So the audio that you capture is arguably the most important thing that you're actually capturing. Video is just the medium by which you deliver that audio. Now, when it comes to deposition video, you have this problem of most cameras only having one, maybe two inputs. Typically, most video cameras have two inputs, XLR, 3.5mm, two inputs, two channels, left and right. However, in a deposition, you're going to have 3 or 4 or more speakers. And the way that you get those 3 or 4 or more speakers into your deposition video is by using a mixer. There are two types of audio mixers that get used for deposition video. The first are field mixers, and the second are board-style mixers. Now, we're probably all familiar with board-style mixers because these are the mixers that you see in basically any audio venue. If you've volunteered at a church, or you've worked in live production somewhere, or you've been to a concert and you've seen the front of house mixer or the front of house position, there is a large board-style mixer. Board-style mixers have all the inputs at the top, channel strips, and then faders at the bottom to adjust volume control, and then a master at the end. Field mixers, on the other hand, have similar but maybe not all the same features as board mixers, or not laid out in the same way. And in some ways, they're much simpler, much more straightforward, but they're designed to be more compact, something that fits into a small case, or something that could fit on top of a desk, and be very compact, very easy to move, very easy to set up, and very robust for using in multiple different environments. Now, you can use board mixers in deposition video. And in fact, one of the nice things about using board mixers in deposition video is that pretty much any retail store that sells pro audio gear is going to sell a board mixer. If you go into a shop that sells guitars and drum kits, you're probably going to be able to find a small board mixer for deposition video. Most of these mixers have 1 or 2 XLR inputs. The really small ones do, and then you can extend those out to 4, 6, 12, 24. The nice thing about board mixers is you can get really, really large ones and go to 48, 96, 120 plus inputs. Those are the two different types: field mixers, board mixers. A field mixer, and this isn't exactly a field mixer, but a field mixer would look something more like this. This is a Shure SCM 268. And so this mixer has 4 volume level controls or gain level controls on the front. It has an aux input control, and then it has a master output control, along with some volume meters. And on the back are the inputs. So there's power, there is the main XLR output, there are some other inputs and outputs here, aux input in particular, and then the 4 XLR inputs are right here. So this isn't exactly a field mixer, but this is a really popular mixer for deposition video, and field mixers are going to look more like this than a board mixer. This mixer is actually designed to be installed into a rack, and you can put 2 side by side. It's designed to be installed in a rack, but a lot of videographers use this mixer in particular in the field, and it works really well. It's built really well. But this is kind of the difference. A board mixer we've all seen. We know what the channel strip looks like with the faders at the bottom. However, field mixers are more like this. Inputs along the back, or sometimes along the sides, and then volume controls or gain level controls along the front, as well as master output. So that's a field mixer, a field style mixer. Now, one other wrinkle that you can kind of throw into this field versus board mixer discussion are whether or not they are recorders as well. Some field mixers and some board mixers include the capability to record. Now, some allow you to record just the master 2 channels. So let's say you're working in a deposition and you have 4 XLR inputs, so you have 4 channels live, 4 channels that you're mixing to the master output, which goes to the camera. Some field mixers, some board mixers allow you to record just that mixed down output that's going to the camera. So whatever is on the master, whatever's going out of the entire mixer, you can record those 2 channels. Now, some field mixers and some board mixers for that matter allow you to record every channel in isolation. So that means if you have 4 speakers or 4 XLR inputs live at any one time, you can actually record 4 isolated channels, 4 individual audio files of those different channels, as well as the master outputs. Now, why is this important? Well, because first of all, if you have recording capabilities in your mixer, then you have an extra backup for everything else that you're recording. If you have isolated channel recording, so individual channel recording, then you have a lot of flexibility in the future if you need those isolated channels for some reason. You know, it doesn't happen often, but if somebody were to, talk over each other in a deposition, and maybe that was really unclear on the record, theoretically, you could listen to each individual channel and kind of discern or differentiate who said what and when. Now, when you're talking about not deposition video, isolated channels come in really, really handy because maybe you're in the field doing evidentiary video and you've got a couple of different clients or people talking on wireless microphones. It's really handy to have isolated channels of those being recorded because that way you can edit out what you don't need from one speaker or another and not just have some mixed down, everything mixed together recording, which makes it really hard to separate people later on down the road. But all that being said, for deposition video, what you really need is a mixer, some way to take 4 plus, probably 4 to 6 XLR inputs or more, and mix those into one set of outputs that you can connect to your camera. Now, what that means is you need 4 or 6 professional XLR style inputs on the mixer that you're using, and those 4 or 6 inputs are going to be used to connect to the microphones that you use in a deposition. Then you need outputs, and typically every mixer has multiple sets of outputs or multiple different connectors for the outputs. Most of them have XLR, but then they're also 1/4 inch. Some even have RCA style jacks. But you need outputs that will match what your camera has. So most professional cameras are going to have XLR inputs. So make sure your mixer or recorder, whatever it is that you use, has XLR outputs that match the XLR inputs of your camera. Lots of inputs, lots of outputs. But it's important that you match the two so that way everything stays in sync, everything stays connected. What's really nice about XLR inputs in particular and why they're so prevalent on professional gear is that they are locking in nature. So that means when you click one in, it's actually clicked and latched in place. Whereas 1/4 inch jacks or RCA jacks, those are just cables that kind of, with tension, kind of snap into place. There's nothing that holds them in place necessarily other than tension. So imagine it like the power cord from your laptop. You can just pull that cable out from the side of the laptop and it disconnects because it's just tension. An XLR jack, on the other hand, actually clicks into place and there is a locking mechanism that clicks into place, and then you can't pull it out unless you also depress that locking mechanism and unlock it. Now, with those inputs, with those outputs and everything else, one thing that's really important to have is phantom power. Basically, every microphone that's going to be used for professional video is going to require power of some sort. And mixers and recorders, the audio production field in particular, have standardized on this term, phantom power, which means that the mixer or the recorder is going to provide 48 volts typically it's 48 volts. There are some variations on that, but 48 volts of power to microphones. And like I said, basically every microphone that you're going to use for deposition video is going to require phantom power. Certain microphones allow you to actually power them with batteries, and then you don't have to have phantom power to power the microphone. Certain microphones don't actually require phantom power, but they're typically used with some other device that provides some level of power. So pretty much every microphone that you're going to use is going to require some amount of power. Phantom power is the typical type of power used, especially for the different types of microphones that are used in deposition video. So make sure that your mixer or your recorder has phantom power. And when you check to see if it has phantom power, also check to see if it has phantom power on each input and potentially on the output side. It shouldn't be there, but on the output side necessarily, but there are some specialized pieces of gear that might have it. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to feed phantom power, for that matter, from your camera to the mixer or from the mixer back to the camera, because both those devices have power, the camera and the mixer, and you don't need to feed power to each other or feed power one to the other. So just make sure that whenever you're connecting your mixer to your camera isn't supplying phantom power, and there shouldn't be phantom power on the output side of a mixer, but just double check. That being said, the phantom power on the input side, so the XLRs that are powering the microphones, that phantom power, you want to make sure it's individually switchable. And if it's not individually switchable, know that it's not individually switchable. And what I mean by individually switchable is, for channel 1, I should be able to turn phantom power on or off. For channel 2, I should be able to turn the power on or off independent from channel 1. So I can have channel 1 on, channel 2 off. Channel 3 on, channel 4 on, while channel 2 is still off. I should be able to do that. Certain equipment just does phantom power on for every channel or off for every channel. If it does that, be aware of that and know that you can't or you shouldn't connect a non-phantom power microphone to a phantom powered jack. Most modern gear is designed to protect itself in the event that you're feeding it phantom power when it doesn't need phantom power or doesn't accept phantom power. That being said, the real risk is damaging your gear by having phantom power on. So just make sure you know whether or not the piece of equipment you're using or the microphone that you're using accepts phantom power, and then know whether or not the channel from your mixer is feeding or sending phantom power to that microphone. This is also a really good troubleshooting tip. If you've connected all your microphones and say 3 out of the 4 of them are working, but the 4th one just isn't, and you can't figure out why. The cables seem to be connected, the microphone last time you used it was good, or maybe when you switch the microphone from one channel to another, it works, but it just doesn't work on one channel, check to see if the phantom power is off, because that might be the thing that's just not feeding power to the microphone and thus causing the microphone not to function. The next thing that's important are individual gain or volume controls. The two terms, gain and volume, are really two totally different things, but they get used interchangeably a lot in deposition video, and especially on mixers where you just have one knob that controls the level of that microphone. You know, in the case of the SCM268, this mixer that I was showing you earlier, it just has one knob for input 1, one knob for input 2, so on and so forth. So is this gain or is this volume? Is this level? In this case, all those descriptors are kind of interchangeable, because at that point it's all relative to how it is you're using it. Most mixers, most recorders will have individual gain and then level or volume controls. So what that means is that this microphone can have a gain level. That means a level that the microphone is set at that's coming into the mixer, and then a volume level, which is actually controlling the level that goes to the output. So on mixers such as this, gain and volume or level control are all built into the same knob. However, in more professional equipment or more equipment with more features and functionality than just this SCM268, is designed to be, because this is designed to be a very simple, straightforward, easy to use kind of mixer. In mixers with more control or more features, you'll have individual gain and then volume or level controls. This is what you see on board mixers. When you connect a microphone to an Xlr input on a board mixer, you have a channel strip. And basically the top of that channel strip, the first knob that you can turn or touch is a gain knob. And the gain control sets the level that's coming in from that microphone. That's the level that goes into the board. That's not necessarily the level that goes all the way out to the outputs. That's controlled by that volume fader, that level fader at the bottom. So you can have gain of the microphone coming in and then level that goes out. Some mixers put these into one, but the important thing is that you have individual gain and volume controls for each channel. It's not necessarily, in deposition video, it's not necessarily important that you have separate gain and volume controls. What is important is that you have separate gain/volume controls for each channel. So that means it's not important to have both a gain knob and a volume knob necessarily. It's helpful in some cases, but it's not necessary for deposition video mixers. What is necessary is that there is a gain/volume knob for each channel that you're using. So again, this SCM268, this is great for deposition video. So straightforward, built so well, easy to use. You know exactly what's going on just by looking at the front of this. Very quick, very easy to use. But all you have to do is just turn one channel up and it's on. There's no other controls, nothing else that's kind of hidden behind the scenes. It's right here, on or off. On, and then on, and then just one master control here at the very end. But that's important to have individual controls for each separate channel. That way you can control each channel separately, because what you're going to have are speakers in the room, attorneys, witnesses, interpreters. Some of them used to speaking, some speak for a living, others really nervous, not used to being on video, not used to being recorded. And so one person might be speaking at a really high volume, another person might be speaking at a really low volume. And so you want to be able to adjust each of those channels individually. Now, there's another function that you'll find more commonly on board mixers versus field mixers, but certain field mixers, and in particular field recorders, will have this function called solo. And solo means just that. It's listening to a single channel, soloing a channel. So what this allows you to do is you can have, 4, 8, 12, or, in the case of board mixers, 100 plus inputs all running at the same time, all this sound coming in, but you want to isolate one channel and listen to just that one channel and just see if there's some problem or double check on the level. Solo is a plus, but it's not necessary for legal video. So if you click on the solo button, you're going to hear just that one channel to the exclusion of all the others. Now, the important thing about solo is that it doesn't change your mix. So whatever else you have going on in that mixer, whatever's going to the output, solo doesn't change what goes to the output. It just changes what goes to your headphones or to your monitors. So solo is a cool feature to have for deposition video. It helps you to kind of isolate issues or listen to a channel in isolation to check on its level, to listen to the quality, to see if it's causing a problem, so on and so forth. It's a really nice feature to have, but it's not necessary for deposition video. You're in a relatively controlled environment. You're inside in a conference room typically for deposition video. And so all you really have to worry about is listening to the mix and what sounds good. And also you're only talking about 4, maybe 6, maybe a few more channels. You're not talking about 100 plus channels of different instruments or 15 channels of a drum kit or something like that. You're talking about individual speakers, and each person is going to have very different talking styles and tone, and so you should be able to kind of pick out just by listening in headphones without soloing any tracks what's going on with each microphone. That takes a little bit of training, a little bit of getting used to, but you can do it. So it's not necessary for deposition video, but if you're looking for a field mixer recorder or a board mixer recorder, solo is a really nice feature to have, especially if you really want to be surgical about your audio. The next feature that really is a necessity are volume meters. And volume, VU, level, whatever you want to call them, meters to see what your audio is doing is really important for a mixer for deposition video. So on, again, the SCM268, right here along this bottom side, there are output volume meters, or there's an output level meter is what it's called. And so just a set of 6 LEDs. The first one is -20 decibels, the second one is -10, then 0, then +6, then +12, then +18. -20 to 0 are green, which means you're in a good range for this mixer. +6 and +12, you're in the yellow. You're not causing a problem yet, but you're getting close. +18 on this mixer and you're clipping, you're gonna lose audio quality or fidelity at that point. So output level meters are really important to be able to see what it is you're outputting from this mixer before it gets to the camera. And you might say, well, on the camera I have level meters. That's right. But individual meters here help you troubleshoot problems between the mixer and the camera. So if your camera is reading one set of audio levels and your mixer is reading a different set of levels, then you know there's probably something not set between the two correctly. Also, your camera's level meters are probably the ones that are going to be the most important ones because that's what's actually being recorded. But it's also really helpful to know what's going on here. So if things sound a little bit off between the two, you can kind of see what it is that's going on these meters. So it's important to have volume meters or signal or level meters on each piece of equipment. And that's to kind of troubleshoot problems in between each one. And then also make sure each are set to basically the same volume. The last thing, and we've kind of covered this by talking about all these different pieces on this mixer, is mic or line or output attenuation. Mic and line level are different levels or different standards for levels of what comes from a device into another device. So mic level, if you hear mic level inputs, mic level are typically much louder or much higher level inputs. Line level are much lower. Mic level are typically microphones, like what you're listening to me talk to you on right now. Line level are typically other devices, like other mixers or a guitar, maybe a laptop or a computer. Those are kind of line output or line level output devices. Different mixers have different mic line level input and output attenuation, which means you can flip a switch and things will change from mic to line level or from line to mic level or vice versa. And that means that whatever it was set to before, it's now the opposite of. So, this is another great troubleshooting tip. If you're trying to connect a device to a mixer and you can hear it, but just barely. Maybe you're connecting a microphone to a mixer and you can hear that input, but man, it's really, really quiet. You have to crank it way up before you can hear anything really. That probably means that you have it set to line input, and if you switch to mic input, it's going to get much louder and you're going to be able to hear it. That's probably what's going on. Same thing goes in reverse for devices. If you connect a device and it is just so loud, it's overdriving every input and you can't get the volume low enough or get the level low enough for it to sound good, it's probably because you have mic level input set for that input even though it's line level coming in. So just switch it and that should fix the problem. Again, it's really important that your mixer matches your camera. So if you have those same kind of problems, it's really loud or it's really quiet, check and see if your mixer and your camera are set to the same level of attenuation or the same level setting. So for example, on this SCM268, on the back here, this mic output, this is XLR, and just because it's XLR doesn't mean that it's automatically mic input or mic output. XLR is just the connector type. So I can have line output coming out of this XLR connector. Similarly, I could, not really on this mixer, but I could have line level inputs coming to the XLR connector Or in reverse, I could have mic level inputs coming to a 1/4 inch connector or something like that. So it's important to note that this output needs to be the same as the input on your camera. Otherwise, this might sound okay, or the levels on here might look okay, but the levels on your camera will not look okay, or will not sound okay. So this is one of those situations where you need to connect the two devices together and make sure that they're talking the same level. All right, so those are the things you need to look for in field mixers and recorders and board mixers and recorders, and how to set up kind of the main piece of audio for deposition video. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you found this video helpful or interesting, I encourage you, click subscribe down below, because as we post new content to this channel, you'll be the first to know about it. Also, if you have a question or a comment, maybe you want some more details on something we talked about today, let us know in the comments down below. We'll try to answer those there or answer them in a future video. Again, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Legal Video Resource.